I'm here to inspire you with some inspiring class-specific inspiration ideas. Inspired Barbarians can deal extra damage. Inspired Clerics can cast spells for free. Inspired Sorcerers can bend and shape their magic even more. We'll have a ton more of those ideas for every single class coming up. Welcome to the Dungeon Coach. I'm the Dungeon Coach. I'm here to help lower that DC in your game and take inspiration to a whole nother level. Inspiration in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition just feels like it's missing a little something. I've talked to a lot of you guys, and almost everyone uses inspiration differently at their table. And this is fine. I'm all about homebrew here on this channel, but I'm here to give you a brand new way to use inspiration that you've probably never heard of before with class-specific inspiration. But I got together with a friend of mine, Chris, from Treantmonk's Temple, and we did an entire breakdown over inspiration. He is an awesome homebrewer, awesome guy, so make sure you go check him out if you haven't already. It was so great of him to do this here with us, especially with him being such a larger YouTube channel. That video is over on his channel right now, where we break down the shortcomings of the current system and discuss different ways to earn inspiration and different ways to use them, which brings me to this video. I'll be going over multiple custom inspiration ideas for each class, and I'm bringing in Chris to go over extra inspiration ideas for subclasses. Here we go. In the rules as written, using inspiration only grants you advantage on a roll, and this just feels underwhelming. Even if you use my advantage stacking homebrew, it's still just not enough. When a player uses inspiration at a table, it should always feel like an awesome moment. And I feel like a barbarian who's inspired would be able to access different things than a rogue that's inspired. This system is also great because it can be added onto whatever system you're currently using. So let's start things off with the Barbarian. If you've played a Barbarian before, then you'll know this situation. Combat starts, initiatives roll for, and you're in the front line. But an entire horde of enemies rolled higher than you on initiative, and they charge at you. It's not your turn yet, and you can't use your bonus action to rage. But no, this battle's important. That orc chieftain killed your childhood friend. The moment combat starts, the Barbarian digs deep. You use your inspiration and you immediately enter into a rage. No rage spent, no bonus action needed. It's go time. Time out. Whew. Things were getting a little intense, so I had to say this. Using one of these inspiration abilities should not be like any other ability. These should add epic story moments and descriptions in your game. So I challenge both players and DMs, really go for it when you describe these inspirational moments. And as with any homebrews that I say, if you feel like any of this is too strong, then of course you can tweak and change it. A free rage that doesn't cost anything too strong, make it cost a rage point, or make them use their reaction to do it. My stance is this is freaking inspiration, and I just go with it. Other things this barbarian could spend inspiration points on is if he's already in a rage, he could enter into an inspired rage and double his rage modifier damage to everything he does. So instead of a +2, now it's a +4. Or maybe an inspired rage means it can't drop even if you don't attack something. And if you allow players to have multiple inspirations, then they could use multiple of them in one fight. The Barbarian spends 1 point of inspiration to enter into a rage while not on his turn, and then once his turn comes, he spends another point to enter into that inspired rage. And trust me, when you give these things to your players, every time they use inspiration, it's gonna be huge. Let's pick up the pace and go through these other classes. And I'm gonna save Bards for last for obvious reasons. Clerics now can cast Bless or Guidance at first level without any components for free. Or you could give clerics an expanded spell list from their deity that they can access only with inspiration. This also touches on inspiration scaling as characters get stronger. So at first they could only spend inspiration to cast Bless or Guidance, but over time they could access the higher level spells. Or if you allow multiple points of inspiration, you could have other spells on that list that cost 2 points, and they could do a mass healing word in a huge moment where they dig deep and heal the entire party. So the possibilities here really are endless, and any spellcasting class can do this with expanded spell lists for those inspiration points. For Druids, these are some of my favorites here. So you want to shapeshift into a tiny mouse and explore around without burning one of your wild shapes? You could use an inspiration point to shapeshift into any CR1 creature, but you'd only have 1 HP. Or if you're already in a wild shape, you could spend an inspiration point to extend the duration even further. Or, and this one's crazy, like I said before, there'd be a certain list of spells that you could cast while shapeshifted. Now I know that this is a huge ability that Druids don't get access to till much later, but that's also another homebrew philosophy that I have. Give your players cool stuff early on, but limit it and scale it down to what's balanced. So you would be able to cast spells, but it'd be from a specific list only if you use inspiration. So you could turn something like Flame Blade into Flame Claws. Fighters could use their inspiration to gain another action, working similar to how haste does. So if they choose to use it to make an attack, it's only 1 swing. Or take it a step farther and give them a legendary swing while not on their turn. Or they could use an inspiration point to move while not on their turn. Or they could use 2 inspiration points to attack and move while not on their turn, giving a player a legendary action. How legendary. Or if you want to calm things down a little bit, you as the DM could gain some inspiration from the player's handbook and use the maneuvers from the Battlemaster. A free use of the parry ability or a lot of those other options look like a great way to spend inspiration. For monks, you could give them a free dodge or an extra attack, or even let them spend a key point for free. A quick tip for homebrewing your own inspiration ideas is let characters use their class abilities for free. But another idea for this monk is they can tap into that inner key abilities and sense the combat stats of monsters. A lot of monks already have abilities similar to this, but they could spend a point of inspiration to learn key information about these creatures. They'd be able to use this sense to gain information about ability modifiers, immunities, or even its CR rating. Which reminds me, my patrons just voted on the videos for next month, and one of them is how I handle the CR system. It's a big thing to tackle, so make sure you're subscribed for that. For the Paladin now, an easy option would be to just give them a free Divine Smite. But I feel like that's a little too simple, and they already use Smite enough in the first place. So depending on my player's playstyle, I would give them access to that expanded spell list like we talked about earlier. One of my players was a Paladin who was constantly looking for the truth. So at higher levels, he gained access to using inspiration to basically be a human lie detector. But he was only able to use this ability for things that were important to his core identity or backstory of his character. Like I said, you want inspiration to not just be another in-game mechanic that blends into everything else. These should stand out, so tie them to your character's personality and backstory. Sometimes restricting these inspiration abilities towards things that are only important for that character can really help your character roleplay and find out what is important to them. So when this Paladin was face to face with the demon who kidnapped his grandfather, he was able to see through all the lies and deceit and find the truth, using inspiration at a time that was huge for this character. For rogues, we're going to build off the expertise mechanic. You could have them be able to spend inspiration on ability checks that they have expertise in and add an additional +5 or even +10 on top of it. Now I know you think it might be crazy to let a player just add 10 to whatever role they want. But keep in mind, I've restricted this to expertise only that the player chose for what he wanted his character to be really good at. And the spell Pass Without a Trace lets you add 10 to a roll, so it's not that bad. But I would restrict this in the same way I did for the Paladin, and that it had to be tied to something meaningful to the character. And they'd give a description of why it was so important to them when they used it for this big important role. And as a side note, anytime inspiration is used to modify a roll, I would always have that window be after they see the result, but before I say if it was a success or failure. Rangers could use inspiration to generate spell effects like Find the Path, Locate Object, or Locate Person. You can explain how they do this through their amazing tracking abilities instead of magic, which is normally what I do at my table. Need to find something that's very important to that character or the whole party? They could use a point of inspiration to really track down something or someone. But for a more combat-friendly version, you could give Rangers a ranged opportunity attack. If any hostile creature leaves a 30-foot range or farther, they get a free shot. Or if for some reason you haven't seen my Ranger homebrew fix, where I completely fix the Ranger in an epic way, link right here. You can have them use their inspiration to have a free Hunter's Mark with no spell slot or no concentration required. Or you could just go watch my Ranger homebrew video and you'd be good. Sorcerers could use inspiration to gain access to meta magics that they don't currently know. If that's not strong enough, have that extra access last for a full minute. Or let them be able to use more meta magics than they're normally allowed to use by using 3 or even 4 in one spell. For Warlocks, I would treat them very similar to Clerics with the spell options that I allow from their patron. But what if you try and solve a problem that the Warlocks have through the use of inspiration? They have so few spell slots. What if, in this big moment of inspiration, the Warlock's in the middle of combat and runs out of spells? They tap into that inner fire from their patron and instantly gain the benefits of a short rest. What? That's crazy! Full spell resets! Well, if that's too crazy for you, make it cost 2 inspiration. Or if that's not enough, let them also be able to roll hit dice in this moment and get a little heal. And if you guys already use my homebrew rest system that you guys love so much, linked right here, then this would be freaking sweet. Now everything that I've already said for casters applies here too. So you can have a specific list of spells that are triggered for free. But an Inspired Wizard could be so smart and so good with magic. You know those times in movies where you see 2 people talking and that one character's reading their lips? Maybe if the wizard sees an arcane caster do the verbal and semantic components to their spell, they would be able to cast that spell without it being in their book. What? Hey, I'm just trying to think outside the box here. Or if you want something more tame, you could allow the wizard to upcast his spells using points of inspiration. Or you could add extra spell effects to the spells like a sorcerer would, and then he could push the limits of his spells even farther and finally, we have our bards. Bardic inspiration is already a thing, so if you do have a bard at your table, you still need to make them feel special when it comes to inspiration. So make sure you understand the difference when I say inspiration or bardic inspiration. Bards could spend their 1 point of inspiration to give 2 other characters inspiration, really sharing the love. Or they could use their Bardic Inspiration to get a free heal on whoever they cast Bardic Inspiration on. Just make sure you scale that healing to their level. Or what if the Bard wants to boost his Bardic Inspiration with his own inspiration? You can have them spend their own inspiration to increase the size of their Bardic die. Or maybe be able to use 2 Bardic Inspirations at once. Now this last idea is very meta and wouldn't work at some tables. But if you as the DM are the only person that can give out inspiration, what if you also let the Bard player hand it out as well? This would for sure make them feel special when it comes to inspiration and giving it out, like Bards should. But I would just talk to the player and make sure that everyone's on the same page about how you give it out. Which reminds me of that great conversation I had with Chris over on Treantmonk's Temple. We talk about everything there is on inspiration, including if players should be able to hand it out or not. So again, after this, make sure you check out that video, link down in the description. So now we've talked about all the classes, but what about subclasses? Well, I'm bringing them in to share some of those homebrew ideas. What's up, Chris? Inspire me with some of that subclass inspiration.
Yeah, hey, Dungeon Coach. So I was inspired myself by your talk about doing inspiration that's class specific. And I was thinking, of course, when we play class, we pick a subclass, and sometimes those subclasses are different from each other in substantial ways, in flavorful ways. And so I was thinking that you could even go more specific. You could go into subclasses, and you wouldn't necessarily need to have something worked out for every subclass in the game, just for the subclasses that your players are playing.
Chosen.
Yeah, so I came up with an example of one way inspiration could be used for one subclass of each class in the game. And so
I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, I wanted to bounce them off you. With Barbarian, one of the subclasses I don't see played nearly enough, because I really like it, is Path of the Ancestral Guardians. This is kind of a more defensive-based Barbarian. And one of their abilities is Spirit Shield, which allows them to reduce the damage that an ally has taken. I thought that a Path of the Ancestral Guardians Barbarian might be able to use inspiration to double the dice rolled on that Spirit Shield.
Really protect that person.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I have an Ancestral Guardian in one of my campaigns, and I absolutely love that.
And then Bard. Bard is one of my favorites. And College of Lore, they have Cutting Words. And I thought, Cutting Words, one thing about it is it's not always very reliable because you're often rolling a d6. It's not very much. So, you want to turn that hit into a miss. I wouldn't count on it. I would say that inspiration might give them an additional die on their Cutting Words.
Yeah, totally. I totally see that too, especially making a less reliable trait more reliable. I like that.
With the Cleric, one of my problems with the Life Domain, which is probably the most popular subclass for Cleric.
Healer.
Yeah, but they have their Preserve Life. Channel Divinity has that awkward limitation where you can only heal allies up to half their hit points. I thought that Inspiration might remove that restriction.
Ooh, that's awesome. The reason why I love that so much right now, and I had like a body reaction to it, is you have a cleric using their channel divinity, and you inspire the channel divinity to make it even better. That's awesome. To double down. That's cool.
Now with the Druid, one of the subclasses in Xanathar's is the Circle of Dreams Druid. I don't see this one played very much, so I was thinking inspiration could be used to replenish their Balm of the Summer Court pool, so that way they would get a lot more healing reserves that they can use. Because that pool runs out pretty quick.
And I would say you could even do something as far as the numbers on that go. You could have it scaled to where it's, they replenish half or something, or they play something having to do with their level, to where over time, as that Circle of the Dreams Druid gets, higher level, they get more of that from just one use of inspiration.
Well, that's exactly right. So this is something that would scale with level. So the more Druid you took, the better it would be. Right. Yeah.
Love it.
With the fighter, something I've always thought was, it's disappointing that the Arcane Archer didn't end up being the best archer for fighter. I still think the Battle Master mechanically is a better archer.
Right.
So what I thought with Arcane Archer that could be done is you have such a narrow selection of what options you have for your arcane shot, and that's one of the problems, is that you could use inspiration to fire an arcane shot that you don't know.
You have a certain pool, and you can expand out that pool and stretch yourself and push yourself outside of the...
Well, you have this big list of shots you can choose from, and you have to pick 2. And those are the only 2 you can use, right? So if you used inspiration, you could do something else for one shot.
And I honestly think you just inspired me in a way, is things that when you're a DM and you're trying to come up and homebrew these different things about what can I use inspiration for, anything that feels clunky or bad, you could have inspiration be something that undoes that in a small way.
I was definitely thinking that way. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Love it.
With a monk, the monk,
A monk?
yeah,
Treantmonk with a monk?
yeah. Well, I notoriously think that monk is the worst class in D&D.
Oh no.
Yeah, and by quite a bit. But one thing I think could help with the Way of the Open Hand, which is probably the most popular subclass for them, is they get, when they hit a creature with an unarmed attack, using Flurry of Blows, they can pick one of 3 options. They can knock them prone, they can push them away, they can inhibit their reactions. I would say if you used an inspiration, when you hit, you could do all 3 effects.
Oh, wait. So then what would happen to them with all 3 effects?
They would be knocked prone, pushed 15 feet away, and lose their reactions.
Oh, that's so cool. And you've doubled down on that, using a class-specific feature and then taking that feature another notch higher with inspiration. I love that. And I'm just picturing this monk, boom, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, I always think with monks, what I want is the Kung Fu movie.
Yes, right? And they fly back prone with no reaction. Oh, that's
doesn't
so
seem
cool.
to work that way most of the time,
Nope.
but this is one way they would get that moment at least.
I love it. That's my favorite one so far. That's so cool.
With the Paladin, the Oath of Devotion is probably the most classic Paladin, right? The goody-goody Paladin heroic. Right. One of the things that's frustrating about playing an Oath of Devotion Paladin is they want to use their sacred weapon, but it requires an action to activate. So I would say if you spent inspiration, you could do it with a bonus action.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think in the same way that, it feels a lot better as a Circle of the Moon Druid to be able to shapeshift as a bonus action, and that just feels better. I think that's really cool to be able to trigger that with just a bonus, and then you get to do something, right? In this big moment of inspiration, bang, and then that's cool.
Yeah, you get this super enhanced weapon, and then when your turn comes up again, the battle's over, right?
I know, right? I did it. Here it is. And
yeah.
That's awesome.
With the Ranger, I was thinking about the Monster Slayer because they have an interesting ability called Hunter Sense, where they can kind of sense the weakness of their enemies, except it uses an action. It's really difficult to use. Once again, like with the Paladin, it's really difficult to use that action on something that's not directly combat related, but is going to maybe affect the combat. So I thought with Inspiration, they could do it, and I wouldn't even make them use a bonus action.
It just happens. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about inspiration is you can break the rules like this and just be like, this happens. Like, it's inspiration. It just happens, right? I love it.
Yeah. And you can also, as the DM, you can do a little bit of balancing there to prop up. Somebody who takes Monster Slayer Ranger isn't doing as well as somebody who's got Gloomstalker Ranger, so maybe you give them something a little bit better, right?
For sure.
With the Rogue, I was thinking about the Thief. One thing that frustrates me about the Thief is they have that ability called Second Story Work, where they can climb and jump without reducing their movement speed. But climbing and jumping are both athletics. And athletics are strength-based, and the Rogue tends not to be strength-based.
Right.
I would say if you used Inspiration, you can automatically succeed on the ability check associated with using their Second Story Work feature.
That is cool. Kind of like what we just talked about inspiration just happens. No action, no bonus action. This check just happens. You are a thief. You are the best at doing this thing. You use inspiration in this big moment to scale whatever you're trying to do. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. With a Sorcerer, I was thinking about the Shadows bloodline.
Yeah.
And they could use darkness with their sorcery points, and they can see through it, right? And that's kind of a cool ability. Requires an action. I was thinking bonus action for inspiration.
Yeah, and it's like you said, doubling down on the class flavor and the style that they're going for, this darkness sorcerer. They're able to do that darkness stuff even better. That's great.
With the Warlock, I was thinking about the Celestial Pact, because if you read Xanathar's, it presents the Hexblade and the Celestial Pact, and the Hexblade seems to get everything, right? So Celestial Pact is kind of got ignored, and it's too bad because I think thematically it's very interesting.
Oh, exactly. I love it.
And they have an ability that's actually very similar to the Druid Circle of Dreams that I was talking about. They had Balm of the Summer Court. Well, the Celestial Pact has Healing Light. And I was thinking one way we could enhance Healing Light in a different way is maybe when they spend inspiration, they could heal 2 creatures instead of 1 when they use it.
Ooh, yes. Spread it between, spread it out. That's awesome.
And the last one, my favorite class, the Wizard, the Bladesinger. One thing about Bladesinger, so they really revolve around their Blade Song. Is you have to have the Blade Song active in order to get those enhanced defenses, and the enhanced concentration that you're really relying on.
Right.
And when you roll poorly on initiative, sometimes those enemies are attacking you before you can get that Blade Song active. What I was thinking with a Wizard, a Bladesinger, you don't want to make it too tough because you're already a Wizard, but maybe they could use their inspiration to activate Blade Song using their reaction.
Nice, nice. I love that. And actually, what's so fun is you have not seen this the previous part of this video before this, and you have also hit on a great thing of being able to trigger something before it's technically your turn, and that you can get this combat aura effect like a Barbarian Rage for this Bladesinger. That's perfectly fitting for the Bladesinger too.
So that's my list.
I love your list, man. Like, your list has inspired me to do even more with this, and that I love it.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope your viewers can get some use out of these ideas.
Oh, for sure. And I loved having that conversation about the full-blown inspiration conversation. Was inspiring to me too, and hopefully it is for them as well. So thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I hope this shows you the possibilities and gives you some inspiration to make your own. And I personally want to give all of you guys inspiration to hit that subscribe button. And as a bonus action, you can share this video with your friends. But for real, if you like what you saw here and you want me and Chris to do more of these collaboration videos, then smash that like button. Because if this video gets over 400 likes in the first 4 days, I'll do a follow-up video. It would be one jam-packed, efficient video over everything having to do with inspiration, giving you guys a buffet of options to choose from and really customize inspiration for your table. But I gotta give a huge shout out to one of my patrons over on Patreon. DarkAbyssKeeper has been supporting me for months now, and he is a next level homebrewer. He has sparked so many great ideas for this community of ours, including this one. That's what we're all about here on this channel. Brainstorming creative ideas, thinking outside the box, and inspiring each other. He inspired me, and I ran with it. Now, he doesn't know I'm doing this for him, but he has a ton of pay what you want documents that I'm gonna link down in the description. And speaking of patrons, I got a big shout out to all of you guys. I've received so much support from my patrons that I upgraded all my reward tiers. We have 4 new members with Jonathan, Damien, Finroar, and Mason. I'm really looking forward to help you with those one-on-one questions. I have been blown away by the support from all of you guys, not just my patrons, but my subscribers as well. And as some of you already know, by the time this video posts, my son will be born. Whew. So I can't wait, and thank you all for joining me on this ride. I hope this was inspiring for you as it was for myself, and I've honestly improved my own homebrew system through this research here and talking with Chris. Make sure you go check him out over on his channel and share that Dungeon Crew love. I'm sure I'll have links to his video posted somewhere around here. Here. Videos. Subscribe. Me? I don't know. So until next time, stay creative and think outside that box. Peace.